Hey guys, and welcome to another tutorial for the UMG Minimap. In this video we will be talking about how to make a multiplayer game where we have two or multiple teams, and so we want to display my teammates in the minimap as well as my enemies. So here I have the example already done, but later we will be doing it step by step. So first, we're going to start the we're going to play with either a dedicated server, or we can start with a listen client, but let's go ahead and do a dedicated server with two players. So if we hit play, we're going to have a selection menu pretty much, which asks me to join either team A or team B. Of course, I can have multiple teams. Now if I go ahead and select team A, I spawn with let's say the orange team, or team A. Now I'm going to go to the other and I'm going to select, for example, team B. Now as you can see, both characters have a minimap and they can walk around. Now if we go to the other character, we can see it in the minimap as red, which basically means he's an enemy. And pretty much the same thing for the other one. He can run around, he can see what's going on in his minimap. Now I'm going to just focus on one character. Now if we press M, we have the overview map where we see the whole map. We can zoom in, we can drag, pan the overview map, and of course we can add a marker. Of course, we've seen this in my previous videos. So we can add a marker and we can see the same marker in the minimap here. So it applies for both, and the same thing applies for the other player as well. So let's just go ahead and maximize. So if we press M, he can also add his own marker, and it does apply for the minimap as well. So let's go ahead and try with multiple players. We're going to do like 3. And I'm going to hit play, and then so here we have 3 clients. We're going to join client 1 on team A, and maybe client 2 on team B, and client 3 is going to join team A as well. Now let's go ahead and run here, and let's just move these guys a little bit. Now as you can see, let's go ahead and select one of these clients, for example client A. So as you can see, client 2 sees 2 enemies because they're in different teams, and here we have client 3, he sees 1 friendly and 1 enemy. And of course, if we open up the overview map, he can see them there as well. So let's go ahead and jump to the tutorial. So here in my YouTube folder tutorial, I have a map, which is a similar map, and we're going to open that up. And here we have a character. It's a YouTube WT character. We're going to open that up, and as you can see, we only have basic movements now. So we're going to add a game mode, a game state, and a player controller. So let's go ahead and do that. So in my YouTube tutorial here, I'm going to right click and add a blueprint class, and it's going to be a game mode base. So I'm going to name it WT game mode. And we're going to add a player controller. So right click, blueprint class, player controller, and we're going to name it pretty much the same thing, WT game mode, or player controller. And of course we need a game state, so we're going to right click here, blueprint class, and let's go ahead and look for a game state. So here we go, or game state. So we're going to select the game state base. So we're named that to WT game state. So the next step we want to do is go to the world settings here. If you don't see this window, you want to go to window here and world settings, and here we want to select the game mode that we want to use with this map. So it's going to be WT game mode. So WT game mode. For this example, we want to have the default pawn class to none, because we want to handle the spawning ourselves in the game mode. We don't want the game to automatically spawn the character for us. We want to do that manually pretty much. So for the default pawn class, we want to select that to none. We don't want the game to automatically spawn the character. For the player controller, we're going to select the WT player controller. And for the game state, we're going to select that WT game state. And here for play, we're going to start with a dedicated server, and let's just start with one client to test things out. Now, if we go ahead and play, you're gonna notice that we spawn nowhere, we have no character, we have nothing. So what I like to do here is have a pawn that I can possess at the beginning, so that I have a starting view. And so the pawn that we're going to use is this one right here. It's a simple pawn, it has nothing but a camera, and so you can just right click, for example. Let's go to YouTube here. We're going to right click, blueprint class, and we can select a pawn, and we can call it starting view. And if we double click on that, we can simply add a camera right here, and then obviously we can simply place the actor, and then we can rotate it, and then we can possess it in the player controller. But for this example, we're going to use this one right here. So the name of this, let's delete that class. So the name of this one is camera SOG. So we're going to, and so we need to possess this this actor of this pawn to have a starting view viewpoint. So we're going to open up the WT player controller. So in the player controller, in the begin play, we're going to call get all actors of class. So we want to look for that pawn. So the pawn again is camera SOG. So camera SOG, and there you go. We're gonna basically just get the first one. So get copy. We're gonna get the first index and want to possess that. So right click, possess. And we want to possess this actor. So this is something that happens on the server, and it's going to be replicated to our client. Now if we play, you're going to notice that we possess that pawn, and now we have a starting viewpoint. So now we need to add the selection menu where we pick up a team. So either team A or team B, whatever you want. Now in the YouTube tutorial, I'm going to create an enum of teams. So I'm going to go to blueprint here and enumeration. So let's just call it the team. Why not? So the team, going to open that up, and we're going to add a couple teams here. For example, so the first one is going to be none, basically no team at all. And the second one is going to be team A, and the next one is going to be team B. Now you can add as much teams as you want. You can even make another enumeration for like groups or parties or something like that. So that's the team, either none or team A or team B. And in the character, we want to add a variable, and it's going to be replicated. So this is the WT character. We're going to do add new variable, and it's going to be my team. And the type is the enumeration that we just made, so the team. And we're going to compile, and so by default it's going to be none. Now let's go ahead and do create a folder here. We're gonna name it widgets. So this is where we're going to create the selection menu as well as the minimap and the overview map. So I'm going to right click here, user interface, and then widget blueprint, and I'm going to call this my team selection. We can double click that, and we can basically add a, you can pretty much customize this as you want. So I'm going to add the background color, and I'm going to anchor it to full. I'm going to add the horizontal box here, going to align that to in the middle, and then I'm going to add 2 buttons. So button 1 and another button, and we can add some text to them. And the same thing for the other button. So I'm going to try to do something just simple. I don't want to spend a lot of time customizing this, so we'll just name this team A, and the other one is team B. Yeah, we don't want to customize the colors or anything. It's just to pretty much just show you what we can do. So for text, I'm going to change it to like 100 or something like that, and the same thing for the text for button 2. And so let's go ahead and change the colors a little bit. Background, something like that. Copy that and go to button 2, background color, just paste that pretty much. Nope, just paste that. Let's add some outliner to the text, outliner size 2, same thing for this, outline size 2. Select the buttons, let's add some padding, something like 5 or 10, same thing for the other button, and there you go. Going to select button 0, I'm going to rename that to BTN, I don't know, Team A, and same thing for the other one, BTN Team B. There you go. Now on the begin play here, I'm going to add a sequence. Now this is of course in the WT player controller. We're going to add a sequence. So first we're going to possess that, and then we're going to create the team selection widget. So create widget, and we're going to hook that there. Going to select that widget is my team selection, and we're going to simply add to viewport. And just after that, we want to show the mouse. So let's just set show mouse, or like cursor, and I want to set that to true. And obviously you want to go back to the my team selection, select that background blur, and we want to change the blur string to something like 2. Now before it's a multiplayer, we want to make sure that only the server is doing this part, and the client that is controlled by a player, an actual player, is doing this part. So here we're going to do has authority, so we want to make sure that the server is the one that is going to do the possessing right here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make sure that this controller is locally controlled by a player. So to do that, all you need to do is just do is local controller, and we want to add a branch. So we're going to hold B, and then want to make sure that it's a controller that is controlled by an actual player. So is local controller yes, then true, we add that, and now if we play, we should have a nice blur with either team A or team B. Now the next step I want to do is go to the game state, so WT game state here, and I'm going to create an array of type players or characters of the character that's going to play. So let's go ahead and add a variable in the game state, and let's just call it players. And of course it's going to be public and replicated, so make sure that it's replicated, and type is going to be WT character. And we're going to take the object reference again. Of course this is an array, so let's change that. So we have a player variable of type WT character, and it's going to be an array and replicated. So this is very important. So that's all we need to do in the game state. Now we want to go to the game mode. So in the game mode, we want to spawn the player when he picks his team. So we want to go here. I want to open up the game mode, and in the game mode, we want to create an event. So let's just do custom event, and we're gonna call it request spawn. So we want to request that we want to spawn because we picked our team. So this event is going to accept 2 parameters, or like 2 inputs. So the first one is going to be what team, so let's just call it team. And of course the type is going to be the team enumeration, so the team. There you go. And obviously we need the controller. However, what controller is requesting this? So it's going to be controller, and the type is going to be controller. So make sure that it's controller, object reference. Let's compile, and what we want to do here is want to do a switch on the team. So switch on the team, that's the enumeration, and we're going to do this. I'm going to hook team here. So based on what team, we're going to spawn that specific character. So before we do anything here, we want to make sure that we call this event from the player controller. So we're going to go back to the WT player controller, and we're going to create a custom event. So right click, custom event, and we're going to call it team selected. So this is going to be called from the this widget right here, the my team selection. So in the player controller we have team selected, but we need a input here, what team we selected. So we're going to name it team, and for the type is going to be the team enumeration, and we want to get the game mode here. So get game mode, and we want to get the game mode. So the game mode is, or rather we're going to cast to the WT game mode, but first we want to make sure that this event right here runs on the server. So we're going to select that event. We're going to go to the replication here. We want to make sure that it runs on server. This is very important, and that it's reliable. So run on server and that is reliable. So we want to cast this, and I prefer to convert this to pure. So just right click here, convert to pure cast, and we want to call this event request spawn. So we're gonna drag there, request spawn. So we want to, now that we picked our team, we want to request a spawn, and so the team is going to be sent by the widget. So I'm just going to link that there. And for the controller, it's going to be self, because this class, it's a player controller. So there we go. So this is going to be called when we select a team from the widget right here. Now that we have this event, let's go ahead, let's go back to the my team selection here. We're going to select the button team A. I'm going to scroll to on clicked. So this is when we select a team A. Gonna do the same thing for the other buttons. So select button team B, and we're going to click on clicked here. We're going to add the event. Now this is pretty simple. All you need to do is just right click, get the player controller. So I want to get the player controller, and I want to cast that to my player controller, or like cast to the WT controller, and right click, convert to pure. Only doing this because I'm sure that the cast is going to be successful, and all you need to do is just call the event team selected that is in the player controller. So I'm gonna drag from here, team selected, and obviously this is team A, and so I'm going to select team A, and the same thing for team B. So it's essentially just the same thing. So here we're going to select team B. And after we do this, we want to remove the widget. So just right click here and just remove from parent. So as soon as we pick a team, we don't need the widget anymore. So we can just remove it from parent. There you go. Now, if we play, as soon as we select team A, as you can see, the widget disappears, but we're not spawning. So we need to spawn. So that's it for the my team selection. We can just close that up. And this is pretty much it for the player controller as well, so we can just close that up as well. Now we need to handle the character. We need to spawn in the game and the right team. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to the character, and this is pretty much the base character. What I want to do here is I want to make two childs, basically a child for team A and a child for team B. Now, so this is pretty much just useful to kind of differentiate between two characters, but it's essentially just the same character. Everything we're going to do, like logic wise, it's going to be in the main character, but the childs are going to be used just for the appearance and nothing more. So if we right click here, create a child, let's go ahead and name that WT character. Let's just call it, for example, attacker. Let's just have an attacker and a defender. So this is going to be an attacker, and the same thing here, create a child and WT character underscore, let's just call it defender. Now I'm going to double click on the attacker, and then I'm going to the construction script here, and I'm going to create a dynamic material. Now the way to do that is you call create dynamic material, and here I have a simple color. You can just, it's a simple material right here. If we open that up, so it's a simple material with a color parameter that is named color, and so we're going to in the construction script here, we're going to call create dynamic material, or you can select the mesh and use, instead of simple color, you can use this UE4 man body. And so we want to create, or we want to promote this to a variable. So create variable, you can just right click here, promote to a variable. You don't need to do that. In fact, let's just go ahead and delete that. So we can just do this and then set the vector parameter here, and then obviously just use the same thing here. And so if we compile, let's just go ahead and see if that, so as you can see, the color changed. So again, just create dynamic material, what material you want to use, and I called set vector parameter value to change the parameter color with whatever color I want, and then I just set the material and the mesh, which is the element index, and replaced it with this one. This is just to change the appearance. So we're gonna do the same thing for the other character. I'm going to do the same thing for the defender here, and let's just open the blueprint, go into the construction script, just copy paste, and pretty much just pick up another color, something like, I don't know, red, something like, or orange. If we compile, save, viewport, and here's the character. So this is essentially just to apply some color to the material. So based on the team, if we're team A, we're going to spawn as an attacker. If we're team B, we're going to spawn as a defender. Now, if we go to the character, this is where we're going to do all the work, because this is the base character. So whatever we do here is going to be applied to the child's. So again, just making sure that my team here is public. So again, make sure that it's replicated and that it's public. And this is very important, expose on spawn, because when we spawn this character, we want to we want to update this variable so that other players know what team this character belongs. So let's go ahead and compile, and for now we can just go ahead, go back to the game mode, and now we can spawn the character based on the team. So this event is called from the player controller, and we want to right click here and do spawn actor from class. So if it's team A, I'm going to spawn the child, which is the WT character attacker. So this is going to be team A is an attacker, team B is a defender. So for the spawn transform, we're going to use the start, or we have some player start here. So I have a couple here, you can add them. It's just a simple player start. So we have one here, and a couple in the map. So what we want to do, I shouldn't have compiled, but anyways, what we want to do here, I want to right click here and just get all actors of class. So get all actors of class. And so what we want to get is the player start. So look for player start. So I have a couple players start in the map. So that's a player start, but we want to pick a random one. So to get a random one, we want to do a random integer. And the maximum is going to be the length of this array. So that's going to be the max value. We want to get a copy from this array. So we want to get a copy, or like one of those player start, and it's going to be at random. So again, team A is going to be get all actors of class. We're going to get all those player starts if we have multiple ones, and then we want to get a random one. We don't want to get the 0, we want to get a random one. And so it's done by random integer, and the maximum is going to be equal to the length of the array. And we want to get the transform of this player start. So get actor transform, and we're gonna link it here, and that's going to be hooked here as well. And now we can just try to adjust location, but always spawn, and the team is going to be equal to whatever we selected here. So we're going to do that. Now remember, this my team, we have it in the character, and it's set as expose on spawn, and that's why we have it as an option here when we spawn the actor. So let's clean things up a little bit here. So there you go. So we want to spawn, just go ahead and compile, just get rid of error. So here, if we're team A, we spawn the attacker. So we're going to use this controller right here. We're going to call possess. So we want this controller, which the one who requested the spawn, to possess this character. So we're going to do it here and simply do possess this pawn. And let's go ahead and do the same thing for this. So there you go. Now we want to do the same thing for the team B. So we're going to simply just copy paste, or like Control W to duplicate, and the team is going to be coming from here. Now if we're team B, then do pretty much the same thing, except for instead of attacker, we're going to do WT defender, or like WT character defender. So we're gonna spawn a different character just for the different color. And for the pawn, or like the player controller, is going to be this one. So pretty much the same thing. So it's essentially just the same thing. The only thing that we changed is the character class. So we have an attacker, we have a defender. So based on the team, we're going to be either an attacker or a defender. Now if you remember, we have an array and the game state, and we need to add this pawn to that array. So when we spawn a new player, we want to add it to that list. So what we need to do is just get the game state. So we get the game state and we want to cast it to the WT game state. I'm going to right click here, convert to pure, and then I'm going to get the array. So get players, and you're going to notice that it's replicated, and we want to do add, let's just do add unique, and we're going to do it for both. So here we want to add this player. When we spawn this guy, there it is, and obviously the same thing here. So once we spawn the player, we want to add it to the list that is replicated. Now with this one, we should be able to spawn if we select a team, and there you go. Of course, we need to hide the mouse. So as you can see, we're team green. I don't remember if it's attacker or defender, but we're gonna do the same thing for team B. And as you can see, we have a different color, and this shows that we are in a different team. Now if we do it with two players, now we're gonna be team A here and team B here, and let's go ahead and look for the other player, and here it is. And as you can see, we're gonna see each other just fine. There we go. So different teams. So the next step is to add the minimap. So we're going to go to the WT character where everything happens. Again, in the W character here, the base character, or like the parent character. And here we want to add a minimap. So we're going to go to widget here, and we're going to right click and do user interface widget blueprint. And it's going to be widget minimap. Let's double click that, and we're going to add a minimap component. So minimap component, and again, if you're new to this, you don't know what this is, there will be a link in the description if you need this minimap. And I have other tutorials on how to set up the minimap, how to make a texture, how to add players, etc. And of course, the same or like this multiplayer tutorial will be included or like added to the examples and the tutorials minimap. Here, if you go to examples, you have the L tutorial. I'm going to add this multiplayer tutorial here and the next update, and of course add more stuff to it so that you can see how things are done. Now let's go back to the widget minimap here. We're going to select, let's just anchor it here at the bottom, and we're going to go to the alignment here, and we're going to select 1.3 for example, 0.3, and here we're going to do 1.2 or like 1.1. Same thing here, maybe 1.1. And for the size, let's just do 350 by 350. And for the texture, let's just do the minimap texture. For the opacity, we don't care about that. For link and texture, we've already done these tutorials. If you want to know how this is done, you can check out my other tutorials. So link in texture is 14,000, and for the rotate, let's just make it rotatable. So it's going to be circular and can rotate, and let's just add a view angle here. So my view angle, let's just change the size to like 200 by 200. My player position, I'm going to set that to 40 by 40. For the border size, we're going to select something like 440. That looks just fine. Now I want to select that. I want to change the alignment a little bit. So here, just select 2. In here, 1.2. There you go. So that's our minimap here. And now all we need to do is just add this to the viewport. Now in the WT character, we're going to right click and do a custom event. And I'm going to call that, we're going to call it setup minimap. So this event is going to be called by the server, and so we need to make sure that it runs on owning client. So select the event, go to details panel, and on replicates, we need to change not replicated to run on owning client. Make sure that it's reliable as well. So this is going to be called by the server on owning client, and owning clients are the players that are controlling the character. So we need to set up the minimap, but we need a overview map as well. So let's go ahead and add an overview map. So widgets, and we're going to right click, user interface, widget blueprint. Let's just call it widget overview map. And we're going to double click that. We're going to do the same thing. Minimap component. And I'm gonna go ahead here. I'm going to go to the anchor. I'm going to hold control and select the middle, and it's going to align itself, or like anchor itself automatically. For the alignment, I'm going to pick 0.5 here, and it's going to be at the center. Same thing for the other one. 0.5 is going to be perfectly at the center. Now for the size, I'm going to select 1200, and the same thing for the other one. And for the texture, it's going to be the same thing. So minimap texture, and I don't want it to be circular, so I'm going to uncheck that. Now for the zoom, I'm going to select 0.8, and link in texture 14,000. This is very important. You need to enable is big map to make sure that it's an overview map. So for this to work, we need to check is big map. So make sure that it's checked, and we can enable the mouse wheel when you want to zoom in. Let's jump to location texture and just do my player position, and let's change that to, and for the border, I don't care about the border. And now here, when it comes to an overview map or big map like this, you can customize these settings right here. When you drag the map, you might want to change the sensitivity and also the drag limit. And also, if you want to drag it at all, you can disable that if you want. And also what mouse button is used. So now that we have the overview map, so we need to add that to the character, or like just have the option to show the overview map when we press M, and we're going to do that later. So I'm going to right click here and add a sequence. So I'm going to kind of organize things a little bit. So sequence, the first thing we want to do is create the minimap that's going to show at the bottom, and it's going to be obviously the widget minimap. So we're going to right click here, create widget, and we're going to select the widget minimap. Just link that there, and I want to do right click here in the return value and just do promote to variable. This is going to be my minimap. And then we want to drag here and do add to viewport. And then we want to make sure that it updates. So we want to get the minimap component and do start update. This is very important. So minimap start update, and you want to make sure that you give it the owner pawn, which is the character. So I want to drag from there and just give it reference to self. Like you can write self or this. So we want to give it self. So it's very important to make sure that it works. So with this one, we should have a minimap at the bottom, but we also want to create the overview map. So we're going to right click here, create widget, and we want to select the widget overview map. So that's the widget we're going to create this time. And the same thing, we're going to right click here, promote to variable, and we're going to call it my overview map. Now we don't want to add this to the viewport because we only do that when we press M. But what we're going to do is we want to handle the on-click event, which acquires when you click on the map. Basically, you want to add a marker or something like that. So we're going to handle that event so that when we click on the map, we want to add a marker. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go here at the bottom. I'm going to create a custom event. This time it's not going to be replicated, it's just a normal event. And I'm going to rename it handle on click event. So we're going to call this just after we set up this variable. So handle the on click event. So there you go. And so going to go to the event. Obviously this is the this is going to be called by the server to set up the minimap and the overview map. In the handle on click event, we want to get the overview map here, and we want to get the component, or like minimap component, and we want to call and just write bind, and we have bind event to minimap clicked. So we need that event, and so we will link that there. So we want to bind this event so that when we click on the map, we want to do something. Essentially, we just get the world location, and you can do whatever you want with that. In our case here, we're going to add a marker. So we're going to drag from event, going to add event, add custom event, and as you can see, it automatically creates an event with the world location, and sorry for the misspelling here, and the button used. So basically, what button we clicked, either we pressed, sorry. So either like left click or a right click. So we're going to use the left mouse button to add a marker, and the right mouse button to remove the marker. So let's call this event overview map. So now we're going to spawn an empty actor, or like a dummy actor, to add a marker. So if we go to the Centurials minimap here for minimap component and then actors, we have a bunch of empty actors. Now of course this is the parent. You can just right click, create a child, just name it. Let's just name it dummy marker. So if we open this actor, we're going to notice that it's just an empty actor with a bunch of variables. Basically, we're going to use this to spawn an empty actor and add that as a marker, because we can change its location, its transform, etc. So we're going to back to the WT character. I'm going to right click here and do spawn actor from class, and what we're going to spawn is the dummy actor. So we named it dummy marker. There we go. So as soon as I select the dummy marker, you're going to notice that we have a bunch of variables that we can fill in. Now we can either use these variables and then get them from here, or we can just ignore them. So let's go ahead and do right click on the return value and just do promote to variable, and I'm going to call this my marker. Now this is very useful. Now because we spawned it as an actor, now if you want the location of this marker, you can simply just get the marker actor and just get the location. So the first thing I want to do is verify what button we pressed. So we're going to do a branch here. We're going to do button used equal to left mouse button. So we want to make sure when I use the left mouse button to add the marker to the overview map. So we're going to do this. If it's true, now the first thing we need to do, so if it's left mouse button, so if it's true, we want to make sure that my marker is valid. So is valid. So true. So we're going to add this this marker to the minimap later on. So if this marker is valid, so if it is valid, we're going to change its location. So because it's already in the minimap, we simply want to change its location so that it updates on the minimap. So set actor location, and the transform is going to come from, and the new location is going to be included in the event. So we just link that there, Now, if it's not valid, that means it's not added to the minimap, and so we need to spawn it. So if it's not valid, we want to spawn the actor and save it in the variable, and then we want to add that to the minimap and to the overview map as well. So what we want to do is first we'll get the overview map here, and then get the component. So get the minimap component, and then we want to add an actor. So add actor. So a simple actor without the S. So add actor, and so we're going to do that. And the point of interest actor, this is very important, is going to be this marker. And so for the texture, I'm going to use location pointer. And for the texture size, I'm going to leave it 50 by 50. For the color, just select something like orange. And for the tooltip, you can add the tooltip if you want. And we need to do the same thing for the minimap, but this time for the minimap, we're going to add it as a persistent actor so that even if it's off screen, we can see it. So get the component again. Now this is for the minimap, and this one is for the overview map. So here we want to get the add persistent actor. So the first method, and we're going to do the same thing. Now we need the marker. I'm just gonna use the marker right here, get. So we're gonna use the marker, and the texture is going to be the same, location pointer, and size the same, the color is the same as well. And out of minimap texture, this is when it's off screen, we want to change the texture to something else. So let's use out of minimap indicator 2. So I'm going to use the out of minimap indicator, which is this one. As you can see, it's anchored at the bottom. And so that's pretty much all we need to do. So this is going to handle the on-click event, but when we right-click here, we want to remove the marker, and so we're going to add another branch here. When it's false, if it's not left mouse, we're going to verify if it is right mouse button. So right mouse button. So if it is the right mouse button, and if it's true, all you need to do is just take this marker and just destroy it, and it's going to automatically be removed from the minimap. And there you go. So this one is going to handle the on-click. Now, of course, we need to specify the transform. This is very important. So we're going to drag from here and just do make transform. And the only thing we care about is the location. Oops. So we're going to drag that. Now we're going to handle the M key to show the overview map. So let's go ahead and do that. So now we're going to do the M key to show the minimap, show the overview map, sorry. So M keyboard. So we're going to use that, and now here's what we're going to do. The first thing we want to do is take that overview map. So we want to make sure if it's visible. So if is visible, and obviously you want to add a branch here. So when we press the M, we want to make sure if it's visible or not, or verify. Now if it is visible, we want to remove it. So if it's true, we'll just take that overview map again and just do remove, remove from parent. So remove from parent, and this is optional, but you can do it. So we're just going to get the component just to save up on performance. So get the component and just call stop update, and make sure you don't enable this. We don't want to clear the point of interest, just leave it empty. So we want to stop the update, and then if it's false, which means we want to show it. So what we're going to do is we're going to get that overview map, get the minimap component. So get the minimap component, and we want to add that to the viewport. So add to viewport. So if it's false, we add it to the viewport. We want to add the delay here, just a small delay of like 0.2. And then we want to call minimap start update. This is also very important. So the same thing as the minimap, we want to give it a owner pawn, which is going to be self. So we just write self and give it the reference to self. And obviously we want to enable the mouse, so we're going to get the player controller, and we want to set show mouse. So we want to show the mouse or the cursor. So we're going to check that, and we also want to set the input to game and UI, or UI only if you prefer that. So we're going to do that, and we're going to focus on the overview. If it's false, we want to add the overview. I'm sorry, this is not the component. Actually, it's the overview map that we want to add to the viewport. So make sure that it's the overview widget and not the component. And so we want to add this to the viewport, and then call the start update given itself, and then get the player controller, show the mouse, and enable UI and game and UI. So we need to do the opposite here. When we hide the overview, we want to disable this. So we want to hide the mouse. So I'm going to hide the mouse. So we're going to uncheck that, and we're going to do game only. So we're going to set the input mode to game only. So we're going to go back to the setup minimap event, which runs on owning client. Basically, the server calls this event. I want to make sure that we hide the mouse. So git player controller and just hide the mouse, and also, so let's just go ahead and do show mouse. So I want to make sure that the cursor is invisible and the input mode is to game only. So we need to call this event. What we want to do is just right click here and look for event possessed. So this event is fired when the character is possessed by a player controller. And so at that moment we can call the setup minimap. So we can simply just do setup minimap. So as soon as we're possessed, this event right here, if you read, normally only acquires on the server standalone. So this event is going to happen on the server, and then the server is going to call this event right here. Now, of course, you can also add has authority if you want. So switch has authority, just making sure that the server is going to make this call. So the server is going to call this setup minimap, and in the setup minimap, we just create the widgets. And when we press M, we're going to show the overview map. And again, of course, you can make sure that it's valid. So let's just making sure that it's valid before doing anything. So if it is valid, now if we go ahead and play, let's just really quickly hop in and team A. If I press M, as you can see, we have the overview map. I can zoom, I can drag, I can add a marker, as you can see. And if you notice here in the minimap, we have the marker there as well. So, and if you right click, we remove the marker. Left click to add, right click to remove. If you are experiencing any problems with the overview, you can just remove the delay and it works just fine. So the last part of this tutorial is to show your teammates and the minimap as well as the enemies. And so for this one, we're going to create a function and the WT character. So we're going to, now before that, let's just handle the destroy here. So let's just right click here and just do destroy. This is pretty much when you die, for example, and in case you're going to respawn, we need to make sure we update the list and the game state. So when we're destroyed, we're going to go to the game mode here, and we're going to create an event. So custom event. We're going to do remove pawn or character, and we're going to accept a pawn. So we're going to do character, and for the type is going to be WT character. So WT character is going to be a reference, and all we need to do is just get the game state. So just copy paste really quickly. So game state, we're going to get that get players, the player list, and we just want to remove item, and it's going to be this guy. So when a character dies, we also want to update that list. So this is the event remove character, which is in the game mode. Now just compile, save, and now on event destroyed of the WT character, we just want to get the game mode. So we want to get the game mode, we want to cast it to WT game mode, right click convert to pure, and just remove character, and So when we're destroyed, we want to remove that character from the list, and for the character it's going to be self. So just write self, get reference to self, and that's pretty much it. So for the last part, where we want to show our teammates in the minimap and the enemies as well, we want to create a function. So let's go ahead and do add new function, and we're going to call it update minimap. Now this is going to be this is going to update the minimap as well as the overview map, and it also supports spawning. Basically, if you die and respawn, the minimap is going to be updated as well. So the first thing we want to do, now we can either use the get all actors of class and then just look for the WT characters and then just add them to the minimap. So this method right here is kind of slow. That's why we have the list of players and the game state, and so we're going to use that. So get game state, and I want to cast to my WT game state, and we're going to do convert to pure, and let's just promote that to a variable. Let's promote to variable, just call it my game state, and we'll just do is valid. So we don't want to cast over and over because we're going to run this off a timer, so we want to make sure that we don't keep casting every second or something like that. So if it's not valid, we're going to do this. So if it's not valid, we're going to get the game state, cast it, and save it into a variable. But if it's valid, we just continue. So what we want to do here is we want to get the game state right here, and I want to get that list. So get players. So because it's replicated, it's going to be updated, and so we can use it to get the list of players. So I want to run a for each loop, and the same thing here. So when if it's not valid, we're just going to get the game state, save it, and then carry on. So for each is going to use this list. So we need to keep track of the players that we have in our minimap, and for that we're going to create a array. So we're going to do a variable, and we're going to call it the players. So this is going to store the players that we added to the minimap so that we can keep track of them. So we're going to change the type to WT character, so object reference, and this is going to be an array. So it's not going to be replicated or anything, it's just going to be a normal array. So we want to make sure that this player or character is valid. So we're just going to do is, so we want to drag here and just do is valid. So we're going to use the macro. So if it is valid, what we're going to do, I'm going to hold B and just add a branch here. So we're going to verify a couple things. So the first thing is we want to make sure that it's not me. So basically it's not my character, my own character. So we're going to do not equal to self. So if it's me, we don't want that. What I'm going to do an end here. We're going to add an end boolean, and we're going to link it to this condition ring. So we want to make sure that this character is not myself, and that this character belongs to a team. So we want to get the team. If you remember, we had a variable. We have a variable my team that is replicated and public. So just get the team. Get my team, and we want to make sure that it's not none. So we want to make sure that it's either team A or team B. If it's not none, we want to ignore that. So we want to make sure that it's not, so this is not equal to none. And finally, we want to make sure that we did not add the player to the minimap already. So that's why we have the players list here, the new variable that we added. So we're going to get the players, and we're going to do contains. So contain item, and item is going to be this character, but is going to be not. So the opposite, we want to make sure that the player is not already on the minimap. So I'm going to add a pin, and so we have these three conditions. First thing is that it's not myself. Second thing, that this guy has a team, so not equal to none. And finally, that this character is not already in the minimap. So the first thing you want to do is, this is very important, you want to add this player to the list. So I'm gonna get the players and just do add, like add unique. So we want to add it so that next time this triggers. So we're going to add this this player or character. Let's just organize things a little bit. And now we just need to add them to the minimap. Of course, this is based on what team they are. So here's what we're going to do. So we're going to get the this character. We're gonna get the team. So my team. So we're gonna get the my team, and I'm going to compare it to my own team. So if it equals to my team, so if it equals to my team, that means it's a friendly. If it's not, it's an enemy. So we're going to do this right here, and then we compare this character from the for each, the team, to my team, and then if it's true, that means it's a friendly. If it's not, if it's false, then it's an enemy. So if it's a friendly, we're going to get the minimap, we're going to get the component, and we're going to add a actor. Now you can choose to add a persistent actor if you want, but for this example I'm just going to add a simple actor. So if it's true, I'm going to add a friendly here, and the point of interest, this is very important. Now the point of interest actor, let's just get it from here. So this is a point of interest actor that is coming from the for each, and we're going to follow the actual rotation. This is very important, it's a character. For the texture, we're going to do position indicator, and for the color, so for friendly character, let's just do green, and for enemy we'll do red. And if it's false, we're gonna do the same thing. So there we go. It's just false. This is an enemy character. It's gonna have the same point of interest. Follow actor, the same texture, but the color we're going to do red. Now we did this for the minimap. We need to do the same thing for the overview map. So my overview map, we're gonna do add actor, or just do selected control W to duplicate. So the same thing, but and this is going to be for the my overview map. So for the point of interest actor, I'm going to do the same thing here. There you go. And it's going to have the same color. And we're going to copy paste this, and it's going to do this, and also, and for overview map, minimap component, I'm going to link this here, and texture is going to be the same. For the color, it's just copy paste, so red. There you go. So pretty much we do the same thing for the minimap and for the overview map. So we just add an actor, and the point of interest is the one coming from the for each. So here it is, and then we just follow the actual rotation, select the texture and a color, and make sure that it's coming from my minimap component, and this one is for overview map, minimap component, and it's pretty much the same thing. Now finally, if it's not valid, that means either the character died or something like that, so we want to make sure, preferably, to just remove it from the players. So if it's not valid, I'm going to do contains here. Just if it's not valid, just add a branch. So if it's not valid, but the players list contains this item, then we're going to remove it because it's not valid. So if it does, we're just going to do this, remove. I mean, you don't have to do this, but it's probably better. So just remove this item from the list. So now all we need to do is just run this function from a timer, so that we keep updating the minimap when people die or respawn or join the server, etc. So, and we're going to go to the setup minimap. So we have a setup minimap here, which is called by the server. So after we add the we create the minimap and the overview map, we want to run that timer. So here we're going to do set timer by function name. So it's set timer by function name, and the function name is update minimap, and the time we can do something like 1 second, and we need to make sure that it's looping. So once again, this setup minimap is called from the event possessed on a event that is marked as owning client, or like run on owning client, which essentially just tells us to create the widgets and run the timer. So now we need to play and make sure that we see each other in the map. So just go ahead and do 2 players, and let's just do this here and this one here. So we're going to join as team A, and here we're going to join as team B. And if you see in the map, let's just go ahead, and as you can see in the minimap, we can see each other, and the same thing is true for both players. Now if we press M, you can see the player right here in the overview map. So as you can see, they both get updated. So let's join as friendlies this time. So join team A for client 1, and the same thing for client 2. So let's just select one of them, and as you can see in the minimap, they see each other as friendlies, as marked by the color green. So that's it for this tutorial, and like I said, in the next update I'm going to include this setup in the examples folder of the Centaurus minimap. Now if you need a link to the minimap, you can find it in the description, as well as my email if you need any help or have any questions. In the meantime, I hope this was useful, and see you later. Take care.